Late night video. Alright. Tips for talking about astrology with people who either don't believe in astrology, don't like it, or they're just not interested. These people are out there. They exist. That's okay. That's so important as anyone who's interested in astrology, and especially us astrologers, people who are actively seeking to understand and to find even more knowledge and wisdom about this. It's okay that people are not into this. Whatever you could possibly think of as a realm of human experience and activity, there are other people that are completely opposed to it and they're just not into it. So this video is not meant to be some kind of like, okay, I'm gonna give you points to, get a good gotcha on somebody. It's really not about that. It's more about coming to terms with astrology meaning so much to you, or at least I'm presuming if you're watching this video. Certainly for me, it counts. Um, and learning how to interact with others as smoothly as possible. Now, there are going to be some times that are just painfully awkward, and you want to make it better, but you just can't because for a variety of reasons. And let's cover them. So, one of the biggest is religion. Some people get so weirded out by religion in general, and especially dogma, and for good reasons, considering Inquisition and bigotry and a lot of hatred and whatnot that has been perpetuated by all of the different denominations throughout time. Astrology is not a religion, and explaining this to people is really difficult. But at the same time, it's really not. Let me put it this way. It's difficult for them to see. This is one of the biggest impediments, I would say, for people to really grab on board and be like, okay, so don't expect to turn the tides of their opinion through just one conversation with them. And quite frankly, again, you don't have to in the first place, but it's good to think about these things. And if you have to talk with somebody about this, then you might as well go for it. So yeah, it's a psychology. It is simply psychology and astronomy linked, as I've said so many times before. It is looking out at the orientation of the planets out there, of the sun, of the moon as well, in relation to the Earth, and finding psychological value out of that. And you could also say potentially mass collective psychological value as well if you're looking at the chart of a country, for example, or something. But at the end of the day, it's coming down to psychological value. How is this impacting? Now, I think that there is a vast unexplored world out there scientifically with astrology, as per the effect, largely unexplored, as per the effects of the tides on biology and the so unexplored, the effects of the different cycles, the different transits of the planets and whatnot on our body, and both in biological ways and chemical ways. I am not an expert in any means whatsoever. I'm not even an aficionado or an amateur when it comes to these things, as much as I love science, and I'm a proponent for science and scientific method. Um, there's so much to explore out there. Astrology is psychology. That's all it is, and that's all we're aiming for. Now, I think why some people get so weirded out about the religious aspect is people get so excited about astrology. Certainly in my case, that's been the case, where my excitement and for all these different human dynamics just has me a little, some people would see it as zealotry or seeing it as something of of a religious nature. It's just psychology. I don't care if other people aren't into astrology. It makes me happy to no end that other people are. But ultimately, I use it as a psychological tool for myself and to understand the world. And I'm constantly thinking, does this make sense? Does this line up with the astronomical facts? Now, I'd like to take a note here of saying that I'm a proponent of the tropical system of astrology. I'm not saying that the Vedic or the Chinese systems don't make sense. Perhaps they do, but I can only speak from authority from my own research and experiences with the tropical system that is in relation to the motions of the sun, or rather the motion of the earth around the sun and the moon especially and whatnot, and specifically focusing on the equinoxes and the solstices, the seasons basically, for us to make sense of where the different realms, the different 12 archetypes, where they are and how they impact us. So when a planet's going through this region of space, what does it mean? So in any case, that's another thing when it comes to talking about astrology with other people. if they're like, oh, well, but what about this thing? And I said this in another video, but just to reiterate here because it's so important, the different constellations and whatnot, that those are just symbols. These are the 12 archetypes. Those are 12 regions of space, which very unfortunately were represented a couple of thousand years ago by the different constellations. And our perspective here on Earth, because of our 23-degree tilt, we're looking up and we're seeing different constellations, basically. And again, at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is the solstices and equinoxes. Those have not changed in thousands of years. Even though our view of the heavens has changed, we're still using the same days, basically March 19th, March 20th, and so on and so forth for different equinoxes and solstices. So that's another point when it comes to somebody saying, oh, but it doesn't scientifically make sense. Well, actually, now, the whole constellation thing, again, that's a whole other branch of astrology we're talking about here. We're talking about tropical astrology here. With, as I said, equinoxes and the solstices. So that's good to keep in mind. Back to the original point. It's so important to, as I learn this more and more as we go, as I live more and more, and my astrological studies continue day in, day out. And I'm exposed to people from all sorts of different backgrounds. Again, I don't care if other people are into this or not. And it's important to have that attitude because for a variety of reasons. First, I hope that you have that attitude because you've done the facts for yourself, the fact checking, and you've done the research, and that you're really seeking to know, does this make sense? And yeah, secondly, I would hope that as a human being, all of us could be able to talk about things that we're really excited about and that we care about without taking it personally. And this is very challenging for us astrologers. It is, because especially if we don't quite have the astronomical foundation for our thoughts and our ideas and whatnot. And so we go, wait, what? If somebody brings up something like I was talking about the different constellations, or if they just... yeah, it's important for us not to hold it against other people for not being interested in this. It may not be as worthwhile to them. Now, in my experience, and in my humble estimation, astrology is one of the most useful tools out there. In fact, quite possibly the most useful psychological tool. Certainly the one I've found the most solace and also affirmation through. But that doesn't mean that I am astrology. It doesn't mean that I own it or that I have to defend it if somebody is not into it. It doesn't matter how well known I may become as an astrologer. I don't feel the need whatsoever to try and defend it, let alone because I feel very sound in my analysis of the astronomical conditions of why this would psychologically make sense. But more importantly, because I don't need for it to work for them, for it to work. I don't need for it to be utilized by them. Maybe they use other tools in their lives, psychologically or otherwise. Maybe they're just not into psychology at all, and maybe even on the worst side of it, of just being very ignorant about their own and who they are, their own conditions, and they just don't even want to begin to go down that path. That's fine. Whatever reason it is, it's okay if somebody's just not that interested. And instead of holding against them or being any different towards them, if they don't even want to hear about astrology, which is a very sad case indeed, and I've been there so many times, even with close friends, that's okay. It doesn't matter. If they're not into it, they're not into it. And it's perfectly all right. So let's see. Constellation. Yeah. As great as astrology is, it is not a religion. Tropical astrology has very, very firm astronomical standards. And though I can't speak for Vedic, it too seems to have a strong underpinning. Again, I can't speak for it, I don't know. Some people are just not into it, and that's okay. That's beautiful. That's cool. That's what makes life interesting. I find one of the greatest joys in life is understanding somebody completely, especially when you know their chart, when they're telling you, I just don't believe in it, or I don't like it, or I don't, think it's useful, or whatever. It's such a supreme joy, an amazing joy to be at peace when somebody does that, because and it's not about knowing more than them or being smarter. No, it's not about anything like that at all. It's not my thought process whatsoever. It comes down to such a sublime moment of universal irony when somebody is telling you, for example, this happens so many times with a Mercury in Scorpio, they're just like, I just don't feel it. I just don't feel how that's true. You just have to kind of laugh to yourself on the inside, like, of course you don't. Mercury in Scorpio with Sun in Scorpio. How interesting that you would say that. And on the outside, I'm not, or even on the inside, I'm not being arrogant or whatsoever. I'm not being argumentative. I'm just going, okay. On the outside, realizing there's nothing else to be said. They're just not interested, or whatever. Gauging the social situation. On the inside, just smiling because it's so beautiful that the system makes sense, even with, especially when somebody is saying it doesn't make sense. Looking at that person's energy. So enjoy that, and enjoy what it is to, if you're an astrologer especially, enjoy having this unique, strange gift. And it it's so funny because it seems so strange to some, but it is one of the, if not the longest surviving tools that humanity has used, as per looking at the different phases of the moon, for example, and understanding how to harvest and how to use agriculture, or understanding the different seasons and understanding how to adapt our lives that way. And of course, outright astrology has existed for countless eons in so many different civilizations, more often than not. In fact, I'm hard pressed to think of one that doesn't have some kind of famous court astrologer or whatnot, whether it's Chinese or Italian during the Renaissance. There's just so many brilliant astrologers throughout the eons. So enjoy this strange gift. And again, it's really not that strange. It can seem strange to other people, but it's always been with us. It's a part of human life here on Earth. It always has been, and it always will be. And indeed, when we go into other solar systems and whatnot, I'm sure there has to be new astrological understanding. Maybe it's the same in 12 archetypes, maybe it's not. That's a whole nother debate, a whole nother discussion. But long story short, enjoy. And don't take it personally when other people just aren't into it, or if they actively are against it for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, really. It all comes down to you and your use of it or not. So if you're going to use it, enjoy. Namaste. Infinite love to you.